Hey guys, this is Substitute Topher. Today we're getting the chance to show you around the all-new 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser. This SUV has been on a hiatus since the 2021 model year, but now it is back. It is slightly smaller, slightly narrower, slightly shorter than the outgoing 200 series model, but nevertheless, it is back, and today I get to show you around it. So what we'll do today is we aren't able to drive this SUV yet. This will simply be a walk around showing you the in and outside of this new SUV. We're able to power it on into accessory mode, and well, we'll talk about the different trims, we'll talk about powertrain, and just everything you need to know about this new Toyota Land Cruiser. So let's power this thing up. And you can hear there a pretty familiar chime from these newer Toyotas. So under the hood of this new Land Cruiser is Toyota's 2.4-liter turbocharged iForce MAX hybrid in this configuration, making 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. Power is sent to all four wheels via an 8-speed automatic transmission. Every trim of the Land Cruiser comes with full-time four-wheel drive and a locking rear differential. And now that I'm sat in this is an entirely different vibe than we had in the outgoing 200 series Land Cruiser. And that's for a very specific reason, because this is now based on the smaller platform that the Tacoma and the Lexus GX ride on. So it's kind of a narrower, chunkier, blockier design than we're used to. This new Land Cruiser kind of shares some things with the Lexus GX, and while Land Cruisers in the past have shared with the Lexus LX. So it's a little bit of a different vibe going on in here, but they've kind of gone back to the roots of the Land Cruiser. And it's funny, we always say that cars just get bigger and bigger and bigger until they have to change the name of the vehicle altogether. But Toyota's kind of gone the other direction with the Land Cruiser. But it makes me think, what's going to happen to the 4Runner? I'm not sure. But anyways, we'll talk a bit more about that in just a second. Let's hop out, show you around this new Land Cruiser, and see what it looks like on the outside. All right, guys, here it is. Keen-eyed viewers will notice that it does share some things with the new Lexus GX, but it's its own car, and we have three different trim levels. We have the 1958, which is the basic one. That is what you see right here in front of me. The self-titled Land Cruiser trim, which is the mid-grade, and the first edition, which is going to be a limited edition car, of course. And with the base model, we actually get quite a few differences from the other models. And to start off, the front fascia is different. We get circle headlights as opposed to squared off rectangular LED strips that you get on the higher trim models. And we'll show you that car here in just a bit, but I wanted to start with the base model to show you the baseline of what you are offered for, well, your base model Land Cruiser. This thing starts at about 50 grand, and Toyota will offer you a premium package with this thing, which gives you a heated steering wheel, a moonroof, a camera, rear view mirror, and a couple other odds and ends. We don't have a price yet for that package, but I imagine it'll be somewhere in the $5,000 to $7,000 range. But yeah, I'm gonna give you guys a second just to take in this new design of the new Land Cruiser. I think it looks quite proper. I mean, you look at this thing and you can tell that it is designed as a proper SUV, designed to go off-road, and I think they've done a really dang good job with this design language. Now, I want to talk about what they've called the base model, the 1958. You often have cars that are just either not called anything for the base model, or they're called like S or SE or whatever. And calling it the 1958 kind of adds a little bit of special flair to it. And especially the fact that you get an entirely different front fascia is pretty neat. So overall design, I love it. When the new Lexus GX came out, I thought it was a huge step in the right direction for Toyota design language, and this Land Cruiser just kind of follows up and brings it home. So let's take a look in the back, see what our cargo space is like here. We may have to power it on to do that, or we'll grab the key maybe and see if the key works back here. This is a very much pre-production car, so I'm not going to fault them if certain elements of it don't work or operate, but let's try and power on our ignition here and open up the back of the Land Cruiser. There we go. So it looks like we have a split hatch here. We've got a button here that will open your glass, which is great. You can use it as a Top Gear style filming car. Put your cameras back there, or just if you want to load things in, you're able to do that here with the Land Cruiser. All right, what is the best way to shut this? I don't really want to touch the glass. Okay, now let's open up the entire hatch here. And quite a high raised load area here for our cargo. Oh dear. Give me this pre-production car, and I'm already breaking it. Okay, let's kind of peel this back and see what we've got for storage. Well, we have this little cubby that I just discovered to put things in. Overall, a pretty decently sized area in the back here. Got this little cargo cover as well, or privacy shade, if you will. Nice, okay. Pretty decent area here. So go ahead and shut that. And let's take a look in the back seat. All right, well, this is undeniably Land Cruiser. I love this retro-esque cloth. It's kind of a unique feel and a little bit of a departure from other cloth materials that Toyota uses, and it's one solid material. I think it looks excellent. I'm a pretty big fan of this. Let's see what kind of room we have back here. Ooh, the door shuts nice too, especially for a pre-pro. Good room in the back. I'm sat behind myself, 5'11". I've got plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom. Oh my goodness, this is a very high roof on this Land Cruiser. Little map light back there. Show you guys the front from back here. Pretty cool. It's just a guy walking into my shot on the phone. Don't know why that is. Okay, well, I guess he's going to be part of the video now. Let's hop out and let's talk about suspension, because that is a Land Cruiser staple. Obviously, you have to be able to take this SUV off-road and go over some things. So let's take a look at that and we'll talk about it. So we have a newly developed double wishbone front suspension with twin tube shocks. This Land Cruiser has 8.7 inches of ground clearance, and you can tell it sits pretty high up, and it looks quite nice. You can tell they've kind of designed this for some approach and departure. We do have a little bit of an aero guard down here, which I imagine could be removed pretty easy. It's quite squishy, but it is good for 31 degrees of approach angle and 22 degrees of departure angle. That paired with the 8.7 inches of ground clearance, you're pretty well set up to do some off-roading. One of the reasons for downsizing this Land Cruiser is to make it more nimble on the trails. And well, just how much smaller is it than the outgoing SUV? Well, it is just about 4 inches narrower and just over an inch shorter. So it's really not all that much smaller. It's just kind of packaged differently, which I don't think is all that bad. Now let's talk about some differences and comparisons to the sister car to this, the Lexus GX. Now under the hood of the GX, we have a 3.4 liter twin turbocharged V6, so quite a different configuration. In that car, it's mated to a 10-speed automatic. The biggest difference with the GX is you are able to tow a little bit more. Towing capacity on this Land Cruiser is 6,000 pounds, whereas the GX can tow 8,000 pounds. However, the GX starts at $15,000 more than the Land Cruiser, so you kind of have to pick what you'd like to have. As far as horsepower and torque, it's really not all that different. With the iForce Max, it does give you a ton of torque, so it's only like a 10 horsepower and torque difference from the turbo V6 that you get in the Lexus GX, so not a huge difference there. The GX is a few inches longer as well, which I imagine just comes down to front and rear fascias and bumpers. It's about 4 inches longer, but overall, I mean, if you're looking at the side profile of this car, you can see the new Lexus GX. So I imagine that just comes down to bumpers. Let's see if we can take a peek in here. This doesn't have any sort of crazy Fox shocks or anything like that. Just a pretty basic multi-link rear suspension here. And then of course our twin tube shock setup here in the front. So nothing too crazy. I imagine they'll come out with some different trims once the first model year is up. We'll probably get some wild TRD and Trail Hunter and, you know, everything else. I was hoping there'd be a little bit of retro nonsense, and there is. There are elements of Land Cruisers of years past, and you can actually see some of them in front of me here over to the left. We are at the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum right now in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I'm gonna go poke around and nerd out over some classic Land Cruisers once I am done here. But I appreciate that they've incorporated some of that heritage here with the new Land Cruiser. I think the biggest design elements that stand out is the back of this thing looks just like the 80 series Land Cruiser, which I think is excellent. And then the front of this 1958, of course, goes back to the super early FJ cars with circular headlights, FJ25, FJ40, things like that. And overall, just a pretty sweet look. Before we take a look at the higher trim of the Land Cruiser, let's poke around this one just a little bit more. I want to open the hood and show you guys the 2.4 liter, and then we'll hop inside and we'll poke around with some of the interior bits. All right, so no hood struts here. We've got a prop rod, that's okay. And here we are, no engine cover or anything, just an honest 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. And quite a bit of room in here, of course. With the Lexus variant, they're able to shoehorn a V6 in here. So there you go, take it all in, check it out. We get a 1.87 kilowatt hour battery with this setup. And well, not really too much else to see under here. So let's go ahead and shut the hood. Oh yeah, that's a nice hood shut sound. Also, of course, Heritage Grille here on the front, Toyota spelled out in script there. I think this is the better looking of the two. You guys will have to comment and tell me what you think when we take a look at the other car. But I love the simplicity, the circle headlights here on the 1958 trim. Let's hop in and poke around a little on the interior, and then we'll go take a look at the other Land Cruiser. Again, a pretty big fan of these seats. These kind of harken back to some older Land Cruisers, like our friend Miles Per Hour. His 90s Land Cruiser has a very similar interior, and I love that. Additionally, on the base model, we have a leather steering wheel. If you know me, that is a big kind of deciding factor on if I am willing to accept a vehicle. And well, this one has a pretty decent feeling leather steering wheel, so I'm pretty happy with that. And speaking of the steering wheel, it's a totally new design. We don't really have anything that looks exactly like this in the Toyota lineup currently. And it looks like we have some adaptive cruise in here, some lane centering or lane tracing, as I believe Toyota likes to call it. We've got a volume adjuster here. We have a volume knob. We get an 8-inch infotainment screen here on the base model. And it is the infotainment that we have been seeing in all of the latest Toyotas, and it works great. I have had no issues with this infotainment screen at all. We have navigation in here, but most importantly, a volume knob. That is great. We also have physical climate controls, a new vehicle that has physical climate controls, a ton of buttons. Guys, this is looking like it's going to be fantastic. Auto brights, cool. Got a physical button for our brightness adjuster here for our gauge cluster, which isn't anything crazy to look at, but that's okay. We'll see if it looks any different on the higher trim vehicle. But overall, guys, pretty dang cool. Let's see our sun visors. Cool. There's me. Hello. All right, what else do we need to look at? We've got our map lights there. Uh-oh, this looks like it may, oh, it doesn't extend. That's unfortunate. It is a pretty sizable visor though, so that's good. We've got heated seats here. In this entry-level 1958 Land Cruiser, we don't get the multi-terrain select. We simply get Sport, Normal, and Eco. And you get some more detailed drive modes in the higher trim cars. And like I mentioned earlier, this Land Cruiser has full-time four-wheel drive, but you're able to configure that with four-wheel drive high, four-wheel drive low, and you're also able to lock the rear diff and lock the center diff. So all those controls still reside down here below the shifter, and they all are physical still. And every Land Cruiser gets crawl control, which is pretty neat. If you've never experienced crawl control, it's a pretty cool function. Basically what that does is it controls the throttle, and all you do is steer if you're going up a steep incline or something like that. I think we'll kind of wrap up here with the 1958 trim, and we'll make our way through the museum, through all of the classic Land Cruisers to the blue car. So I'll see you in a second. And look at this row of Land Cruisers. When I walked in here earlier, I had no idea that I would just be drowning in Land Cruisers. And this is the coolest thing. I love this. being able to see where the car came from. And you can even see some of the design elements, the round headlights going down the line here while our friends at Motor One finish up. You can get a little sneak peek of that blue Land Cruiser there with slightly different headlights, but I wanted to show off, and look back there, there's even more. They just go on forever. This one has seen better days. What's the story on this? Tojo lost in the fires in 2018. That's quite sad. But all these FJ40s lined up. So cool. All right, let's take a look at the other one. Now switching over to the mid-grade car, which is just called Land Cruiser. Again, it goes 1958, Land Cruiser, and then for the first model year, first edition. So this is kind of the middle ground of the Land Cruiser lineup. And first differences in this cabin is much more leather. As you can see, we have some perforated brown leatherette sort of seats here, which I think look quite nice on the blue exterior. We'll show you that in just a second. Other notable differences, we have some paddle shifters here on our steering wheel, and if we go ahead and power this thing on, you can see we have a larger screen over here on the right, and we also have a fully digital cluster. So we have a larger cluster and we have a larger infotainment screen, though it does look the same, it's just slightly longer. And also power adjust steering column. I didn't expect that. That's quite a nice addition here for your little bit of a price premium. Now, in this mid-grade car, we also have our multi-terrain select, so we can go through and switch which mode we want to go into, which I don't know if it's going to show us that right now. You can see we have our little icon over here on the left-hand side. I imagine we'll have, in the production car, we'll have more of an animation of that, but you can see all of our different modes. It looks like snow, mud, sand, wet maybe, and then auto. And then you click drive mode, and that'll take you to your different drive modes, sport, normal, and eco, like we saw in the 1958 trim car. In mid-grade and up Land Cruisers, you get front stabilizer bar detachment. So that is pretty neat. Just more things to help you with your off-roading. And switchgear in here is all pretty much the same. Otherwise, climate control menu looks the same. We just have some nicer touch points in this Land Cruiser trim Land Cruiser, if that makes sense. And we also get a JBL sound system in this mid-grade car. The other car just has a 6-speaker bass system, and in this we get a JBL, a little bit more sophisticated. You can see our tweeters here, and man, I'm excited to listen to that. We also get a moonroof, and this one gets a camera rear view mirror as well. So let's go ahead, hop out, take a look at the outside of this Land Cruiser, and we'll show you some of the differences there. So the main differences you'll see is this one has a two-tone paint job. We have blue with a sort of light gray or white top, and the biggest difference is the front here. We don't have these circular headlights that we get on the 1958 trim. A little bit of a different vibe here with this mid-grade car, and I mean, you can choose which one you like better, but I think I prefer the circular headlights. This one is a bit more sophisticated looking, but I don't know if that's what I would like to have for a Land Cruiser. So that would be up to you. You're able to, of course, choose your trim. This one overall, quite a nice look, and kind of similar to that FJ Cruiser over there. Check that out. Although that one doesn't have two-tone, I was hoping it did, but anyways, we're just surrounded by Land Cruisers today. There are so many, I'm overwhelmed. But I think the biggest similarities are with this thing, with the 80 series, the FZJ80. I see a lot of design elements from this Land Cruiser in this Land Cruiser. So kind of a cool thing there. Let's see if we have a power hatch with this. I'm sure we do. Yes, indeed. Cool. Shouldn't be any different back here. And I believe this is where the hybrid battery sits. So you've just got this little cubby to throw a couple things in, some recovery gear maybe. And you've also got, looks like a little, oh, that's your toolkit there. That is more toolkit stuff. You've got a wall style outlet there to plug in your camping gear if you would like, whatever sort of camping gear you want to plug in. Let's maybe look and see how much room we have with these seats folded down. Ooh, okay. So that folds all the way up as well. And we don't get an entirely flat load surface, I don't think, pretty decent amount of room, but you will have this ledge right here when it comes to loading things, unless there is a way to get this to compress forwards, but I don't think there is. I think the closest you get is getting it to just pop completely forwards like this, and then you can choose whichever configuration works better for you. Okay, let's see what kind of amenities we have here in the back seat. We've got some little side steps here which feel a little bit flimsy, but again, that could be a pre-production thing. We've got a rear climate control panel and a couple of USB-C ports and a cigarette lighter style plug there. We've got a fold-down armrest with 2 cup holders. Pretty cool. You can see our JBL speakers here. Overall, guys, I am digging the Land Cruiser. I am a big fan of this thing, and I'm super excited to drive it. So let's hop out. We'll do one last walk around of this thing, and then we'll wrap it up. Which configuration do you guys like better? I'm still kind of torn on the 2 front ends, so comment. Let me know which one you like better. I'm just curious to see. Yes, let's shut this hatch as well. See how quickly that shuts. Cool, guys. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and we will be behind the wheel of this thing soon enough, so make sure you stay tuned for our full driving review of the Land Cruiser. Don't know exactly when that's going to be yet, but hopefully sometime this year or early next year. So I'm going to go look at some old Land Cruisers and probably spend the rest of my day in here. But again, thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.